Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Always a pleasure.
You know, we love to get into those really complex topics, and today is no exception.
Yeah, today's a big one.
It is. Um, we are going to be tackling the teachings of Eckhart Tolle.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you've provided us with this fascinating interview between Russell Brand and spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle, and you want to get a grasp on Tolle's core ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
So Eckhart Tolle, for anyone who needs like a brief little overview, is known for his book, The Power of Now,
Right.
which is all about, you guessed it, living in the present moment.
Yes.
And one of his core teachings is this idea of understanding the ego. That part of us that gets caught up in thoughts and worries and desires kind of keeps us from really experiencing the present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that he uses this really, I think, clever analogy of the ego to the myth of Narcissus.
Yeah.
The guy who fell in love with his own reflection.
Right. Oh, and it's funny because even in this interview with Russell Brand, like Tolle's making little jokes about, how he looks compared to Russell Brand, but it's,
There's a deep message in there.
Yeah, there's a deeper message there for sure.
It's so relatable because, haven't we all gotten caught up in our own heads?
Totally, yeah.
Fixated on how we appear to others or, what we think we're lacking.
Yeah, it's like we're so busy looking in the mirror, we miss what's going on around us.
And that's exactly it. The ego gets so distracted by its own reflection, this illusion of itself, that it misses out on the beauty and the fullness of just like the present moment.
It's not really based on anything solid, is it? I mean, this ego, he talks about how it's all this external stuff.
Yeah, it builds itself on this really shaky ground, identifying with all the stuff outside of our true selves.
Right.
Our possessions, achievements, our status, even our looks, as Tolle kind of playfully points out.
Yeah.
And it's like it creates this constant sense of lack, like a feeling that we're just not enough,
Yeah, and he even says that the ego needs enemies, like it needs to feel superior.
Right. To prop itself up.
Wow.
It needs that comparison.
That's a tough one, right? Like we actually need to make other people feel less than so that our egos can feel better.
That's a common human experience, I think.
Makes you think, right? Like how often do we do that without even realizing it?
All the time. Especially I think about social media.
Oh, yeah.
It's become like this breeding ground for this ego-driven comparison.
Right.
Fueling this constant need for validation and approval.
Yeah, for sure. So we've established the ego can be a little bit of a troublemaker.
A little bit, yeah.
But Tolle also talks about how adversity can either like push us deeper into that ego-driven state, or it can actually be a catalyst for awakening.
Yes.
And I think that's where things get really interesting.
It's so fascinating how he connects challenge to change.
Yeah.
And how he observes, like humans, we resist change sometimes to the point of, like a crisis.
Yeah, we don't want to change anything until we have to.
Right, exactly. And he actually links this to, things that have happened, like even the pandemic.
All right.
And, like the push for social justice, these things that cause like widespread adversity.
Yeah, huge upheaval in the world.
And forced people to face, uncomfortable realities.
Yeah, and maybe things that they had been avoiding.
Exactly.
Because things were comfortable the way that they were. But all of a sudden, when your world is turned upside down,
right,
you have to kind of confront those things.
Absolutely. And I think that's what he's saying. It exposes the fragility of the ego's grip on us.
Yeah.
On our sense of self, we're kind of forced to choose.
Right. Do we cling even tighter?
Right.
Or be open to like a new way of seeing things?
Exactly.
And that's where this idea of space consciousness comes in.
Yes.
Which sounds very Star Wars-y.
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued.
It does. But it's at the heart of Tolle's message.
Yeah, it's like this potential pathway to kind of awakening.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, space consciousness. It's like I said, it sounds very Star Wars.
It does, yeah.
But I'm intrigued. What exactly does he mean by that?
It's a great question. And, it might sound a little out there at first.
Yeah.
But bear with me. So the first step is this, and that is realizing that we are not our thoughts.
Yeah.
We are the awareness that's experiencing the thought.
Okay, so like that's saying you are not your thoughts, you are the thinker of your thoughts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he uses this, I think, really beautiful analogy to illustrate this.
Okay.
Imagine a ripple on the surface of the ocean.
Oh.
The ripple is completely absorbed in its own little world, completely unaware of this vast depth below.
Just seeing this tiny little part of the picture,
right,
missing the bigger reality.
And that's how a lot of us experience life. We're just identified with like the constant ripples of our thoughts and our emotions.
Yeah.
But totally missing this vast ocean of consciousness that's always there, kind of beneath the surface.
So space consciousness is tapping into that deeper awareness,
Yes.
that ocean beneath the surface.
Exactly.
How do we do that?
Well, he actually suggests it's simpler than we might think.
Okay.
Although, it takes practice.
Right.
It's about accessing those moments of stillness, the spaces between thoughts.
Okay.
Where we're simply present, aware. And in fact, he even demonstrates this in the interview with Russell Brand.
Oh, wow.
Where he's describing how he's not planning what to say next.
Right.
He's simply being present with Russell in that moment.
Wow. So meta. I love it.
Right.
But, yeah, no, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like I think about when I'm painting sometimes or like reading a really good book and my mind just kind of goes quiet.
Exactly.
You're not overthinking it. You're just like fully in it.
Those are glimpses.
Yeah.
Those are glimpses of space consciousness.
Yeah.
Those moments where we're not lost in thought, we're fully present with whatever is happening right now.
Totally. Yeah.
And the more we can kind of cultivate those moments, whether it's through meditation or mindfulness, even just like taking a few conscious breaths, the more we start to recognize that boundless awareness that's always been there.
Yeah.
Like underneath the surface.
It's like we shift from identifying with the contents of our mental living room.
Yes.
The furniture, the decorations, to realizing we are the room.
Yes.
We are the space that holds it all.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's like a really profound shift in perspective. Yeah. And once you start to see yourself as that space, as that awareness, it changes everything because you're no longer threatened by the, ever-changing nature of your thoughts and emotions.
I'm not desperately clinging to the good stuff or trying to push away the bad stuff.
Yes.
Because you're like, it's all temporary.
Exactly.
It's all just waves on the surface of this vast ocean.
Precisely. And that's where I think his message becomes really liberating.
Yeah.
Because he's not saying we should like become emotionless robots, Yeah. It's about recognizing we are not our emotions.
Yeah.
We are the space that experiences them.
It's such a subtle distinction, but it's so important.
Yes.
It makes me think about, that Buddhist concept of impermanence.
Yes.
This idea that everything is constantly changing.
Yes.
And it's our attachment to how we think things should be that creates so much suffering.
Exactly.
And it just highlights how universal these truths really are.
Yes.
I mean, across different cultures, different traditions, spiritual traditions.
Yeah.
I was like, they're all pointing to that same underlying reality.
Exactly.
So if we're not defined by our thoughts and our emotions, our achievements, our possessions, then who are we? What's left?
Well, according to Tolle, we are that space consciousness, that pure awareness. And it's not something that we need to create or strive for because it's already who we are at our core. We just need to remember.
It's not about like becoming someone new.
Right.
It's remembering who we already are.
Yes, exactly. And it's like that analogy we were talking about earlier, the room mistaking its contents for its essence.
Right.
We get so caught up in the furniture, the decorations, all that external stuff.
Right.
That we forget, like, we are the room itself. We are the space that holds it all.
And it just makes me think about, like, all the ways we try to find our identity in those external things.
Yes.
Our jobs, our relationships, our possessions.
Yeah.
And those things are constantly changing.
Yeah, they are.
No wonder we feel insecure.
Exactly. And you've hit on such a crucial point here.
Yeah.
Tolle isn't saying, we should reject those things entirely. We can still appreciate our achievements. We can enjoy a beautiful sunset. We can work towards a fulfilling career.
Right.
But, we don't have to be defined by them.
We can appreciate them.
Yes.
But not mistake them for, like, the totality of who we are.
Yes. Precisely. It's about finding that balance between honoring our form identity, as he calls it.
Okay.
Our roles, our relationships, our experiences, but not being limited by them.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like this shift in perspective, tapping into that space, consciousness is not just some abstract spiritual idea.
Yeah.
It's actually like a different way of being in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we're grounded in that awareness, we're no longer at the mercy of the ego's, constant need for validation, comparison, superiority. We're not as reactive.
Right.
We can observe those thoughts and feelings without having to completely let them run the show.
We can create space. We can respond with wisdom and compassion for
Yes.
ourselves and for others.
That's amazing. So, I mean, to bring this back to our listener.
Yeah.
Why should they care about this? I mean, like, what difference can this make in their lives?
Well, I think it offers a path
Yeah.
to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Okay.
A life that's not driven by, the ego's insatiable desires,
Right.
but rather this really deep sense of connection,
Yeah.
presence, and even joy.
Like trading in that constant striving for just like, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And what I find so inspiring about Tolle's message is that that potential is available to all of us.
He really emphasizes that. It's not just for,
It's not an exclusive club.
right, like the spiritual masters or whatever.
Exactly. Everyone has that capacity
Yeah.
to awaken to their true nature.
Yeah. It's a good reminder. Like, we already have everything we need.
We do.
It's not about fixing ourselves. It's
Yeah.
about remembering who we are.
Beautifully said, yes. And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not just about understanding these, abstract concepts.
Right.
It's about, discovering a new way of being in the world.
Yes.
A way that's more aligned with our true nature.
I love that. Well said. So, to kind of wrap things up for today, we've explored some really, I think, profound ideas from Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
The ego's tendency to cling to the external, the transformative power of adversity.
And the possibility of, finding our true selves in that space consciousness.
Exactly.
And I think, maybe the most important takeaway here is that awakening to our true nature, it's not some distant goal.
Right.
Reserved for, only certain people.
This is a possibility that exists within each of us.
Yeah.
It's just waiting to be realized.
I love that. So for our listeners out there, what if you could break free from the limitations of your ego and experience the peace and joy of being fully present right here, right now? Thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next time, keep exploring.